Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Waypoint. Today we are playing Guild Wars 2, and right off the bat I just want to mention, if you've never played Guild Wars 2, if you don't care about Guild Wars 2, we are going to be spending a little bit of time talking about it, but I want to be doing that in a non-Guild Wars 2 player friendly way. I want to just basically give you a quick overview of where we are, what we're doing, so on and so forth, and then I'll talk a little bit more in specific about Guild Wars 2 later on like I would have done normally. But this is very much my hyperfixation of the moment, and this week's edited gameplay video was going to be Guild Wars 2 again, but I didn't get time, or I guess I didn't get around to making time to make that video this week, so I thought this would be a good compromise. Also, as much as I'm enjoying doing the grid videos, you know, I just fancy the change. I really enjoy making these, like, I'm gonna go play this game and talk about this game for a while versions of a Weekly Waypoint, but at the same time, recording this, it did make me realise that I used to just boot up whatever game I was playing within reason or wanted to play that day, and record that gameplay footage and then talk about it afterwards, and I kind of strayed away from that a little bit, so this is kind of going back to that a little bit more. Anyway, Guild Wars 2, what are we doing? Where are we? Why am I a giant weird hyena cat person? I know that doesn't really make sense. Char are supposed to be cat-like. I've always seen them as more hyena-like, which is a different family of animal, but that's just me. So this, despite me being level 40 something, as you might be able to see in the bottom left of the screen, is one of the base early game zones of Guild Wars 2. If you start up Guild Wars 2 and you choose to play as a Char, you will be playing in this zone. I mean, if you want to, you can teleport to one of the other starter zones super easily and do that instead, but your default experience will be this. And I just kind of want to give a general idea of, like, this is kind of what you do. Like, you can see I've got that little green thing on the top right of my screen is my main story mission. I can go and do that for more of a narrative experience, but the way that they handle exploration in this MMO is kind of like any other. And this is kind of what it is. You walk around a zone, you do renown hearts, which are kind of like side quests, but it's kind of like a base area where you complete objectives to help someone out and unlock a merchant. The merchants, from what I remember from the base game, don't really unlock anything crazy when you unlock them, but they do start playing with that a little bit more later on in the game. But there's also, like, vistas you can go and view, so think, like, you know, like climbing a tower in Assassin's Creed. I feel like that's a really bad example, but yes. Just on exploring the map in general, like uncovering the map, I really like the way that they do that kind of fog of war on the map, make it look really vague and then make it look more specific as you discover individual areas. What we don't get around to seeing in this video at all is the events which can show up. I think we do see one, but they kind of like turn into like event trains where one event rolls into another event, and then more and more people just kind of naturally gather around them, and eventually it culminates in quite like a big giant group zone-wide event, and that can feel really natural to get into and pretty cool to be a part of. And I think this game does such a good job of rewarding you for everything. You can go and do anything you like. Today I felt like vegging out and working on zone completion for this map, and that's probably because I've just made a spreadsheet full of all my different characters and their zone completions, so now I get to do tick boxes, which motivates me to do anything because that's the way my brain works. But also, after doing a whole bunch of endgame stuff and expansions and story content, I just felt like rolling an alt, although Marga and Vanguard has technically existed for some time, but I felt like going off and leveling an alt and just like doing some zone completion and chilling out and seeing what the Char story was like. I just felt like a little bit of a break from the hardcore endgame narrative storytelling aspect of things as I approached Living World Season 4, which is apparently meant to be really good, but the first zone did actually end up kind of annoying me with its mob density, and the objective was go explore until you find this place, and I explored what seems to be the entire zone and I have not found that place. And I guess I was just grumpy that day and I was like, I'm just going to go play a low level character, I don't care. It's worth mentioning as well that this is also one of the most alt friendly MMOs you will ever play. Everything is kind of endgame from the very start in a weird way, and you have account-wide resource banks, and you know, everything just contributes to everything across all characters, and it's absolutely bloody lovely. Going back to basics again, I should also mention I am playing a warrior. You don't really unlock your quote-unquote specializations in a way you would expect them until you start really doing expansion content. They're called elite specializations in this game, so this is what's considered a base warrior, although in Guild Wars 2, every weapon you equip does change your action bar and the way that your character plays, so I am playing a Greatsword Char. You can swap to an alternate weapon on the back bar to kind of complete your quote-unquote rotation. I don't really have that. I mean, I technically have a weapon on the back bar, but I don't bother with that. Also, you will see me using these mounts. You only start with a very basic version of a Raptor when you start the game, but you do unlock these mounts through Path of Fire. This can make early game zone exploration a lot easier, but as you saw, I decided to go ahead and get that viewpoint the old-fashioned way, darn it. But yeah, I think that's all the information I want to front load you with if you are not familiar with Guild Wars 2. All the content I'm doing, apart from the mounts, in this video is free, I believe. I think the base game is just outright free these days, so if this seems like the kind of thing which would, you know, keep you busy, keep you happy, keep your brain neurons firing without thinking about all of that existential dread in the back of it, then hey, yeah, maybe give it a go, give it a download, give it a look. I play on American servers because that's where my Final Fantasy XIV FC resides, and that's also pretty easy to get into as well. You do have to pay to swap the first time, but I believe the first swap is free if you did end up rolling EU realms. Been a while since I've done that though, so don't hold me to it, but yeah. I love the Char zones, man. I love the Char lore because I've played a little bit of Guild Wars 1. I played a little bit of Guild Wars 1 before I ever played Guild Wars 2, and this is basically where the humans used to live in Guild Wars 1, and then there's like a few hundred years between Guild Wars 1 and Guild Wars 2, and you get to see how the Char well, spoilers for Guild Wars 1 I guess, but the Char live here now, and they're not all evil as that game would have you think at the start of it. And it's probably the vanilla zones that I want to spend the most time in, because when I was putting together this spreadsheet of zone completion, I was looking at it and I realized, I mean, you know what, I'll flash it up on the screen now. Dremis was my original main, and he had a very scattershot kind of like zone completion approach. And zone completion isn't really that important, by the way, it's just something you can do if you want to and you get some rewards out of it. You're not really expected to complete every zone you step foot in, especially when you're leveling through them for the first time. But the game does level you down if you want to get to level 80 by spending your entire time doing that. But yeah, I realized that there are still some vanilla zones that I'm not sure I've even ever set foot in, or if I have, it's been for the briefest of moments. So again, another reason why I wanted to take a break from playing through all of the expansions and living worlds and seasons and all that stuff is because I just realized I wasn't as acquainted with the base game as I would like to be, especially since I took about a year break from the beginning of Heart of Thorns to then going back and finishing it. A lot of stuff has kind of fallen out of my brain as well in terms of character level up development and like the basics, so I thought, yeah, I would spend some time going back and just enjoying it. The nice thing about this game is as well, no subscription fee, so when you own stuff, like, you know, like I said, the base game's free, but like when you own the expansions and the living world seasons and stuff, you really can just tackle it at your own pace without worrying about, oh, I'm letting my subscription lapse because I've paused for a while. Sorry, can you tell I'm super in love with Guild Wars 2 right now? It will change. The tides always change in my particular attention span, hyperfixation periods, and whatever words you want to throw at that. Wow, I can't talk today. But I think what's exciting me this week is I could feel myself burning out on constant use story, constant use zone, racing through them to see everything and then carrying on without spending too much time in any of them, and stopping and going, wait, hang on a second. I want to go back. I want to go back and spend some time in old zones and explore the world a little bit more before we're constantly going forwards, and there really is no reason why I need to constantly be going forwards. My comfort with this might also be due to the fact that World of Warcraft, the other MMO I'm playing and super into right now, is kind of in its FOMO content era. WoW devs have realized that if they put temporary content into the game, it drives player engagement, and I think we're just now starting to see pushback on that front from the players themselves. But yeah, Guild Wars 2 ain't got none of that shit in there. At least not that I've seen so far, and I am at nearly 200 hours. Like, they do seasonal Wizards Vault cosmetic rewards, which I can't get because I don't own the expansions that they came out in, which is fair enough. But, like, they stay in there forever, from what I understand. Like, they will do a new season with new cosmetics, but the old cosmetics remain in there for a slightly higher price, but when I say price, it's just for currency you get for doing the dailies, which you actually get quite quickly. Something I'm discovering on Margrim Vanguard, by the way, is I really like Warrior. I really like how Warrior plays. Another reason why I decided to stop my adventures on Rin Idleheart through the expansions for now is because I just unlocked the Reaper Elite Specialization, which I was expecting to love, and I'm not sure I do. I'm realizing that combat in Guild Wars 2 is very hit or miss for me, more so than most other MMOs. I enjoy most classes in WoW, I enjoy most classes in Final Fantasy XIV, I suffer most classes in Elder Scrolls Online because for some reason it seems to be the horizontal designed MMOs which have the iffy combat systems in my opinion, but a lot of the time combat in Guild Wars 2 just doesn't feel very impactful. I end up feeling like I'm just pressing every button that's available to me and watching the health bar go down. Pressing buttons, I guess, doesn't really feel exciting in a lot of classes, but what I really like about Warrior, at least Greatsword Warrior, is the particular move set of, you know, you've got if we're going to go through them all, obviously 1 is always the kind of auto attack, 2 is a kind of AoE flurry in front of you, 3 is a spin towards a direction while doing damage on the way, 4 is a ranged throw attack to kind of pull mobs towards you, and 5 is a big uppercut strike which does a lot of damage, and that pairs really well with Warrior's adrenaline system, which is the little bar you see above my numbers when I'm not on a mount, which as it builds I can press a button to unleash a whole bunch of damage in a circle around me, and obviously 1 pip, 2 pip, 3 pip, each one of those does more damage depending what I build it up to, and the gameplay of rushing between packs to try and keep that adrenaline up. Again, it's very kind of World of Warcraft Warrior as well, to be fair, trying to keep your rage up. But I think Guild Wars 2 kind of does that better if we're going to compare the two. And do remember I just said I enjoy pressing buttons in WoW more, so that is a big good green point in Guild Wars 2's favour. Wow, I can't talk today. But I do tend to like warrior classes in games, so I guess it shouldn't be too much of a shocker that I'm enjoying this one. Maybe what I need to do with my Reaper Necromancer is ignore the meta battle like this is what you gotta do to get the best DPS, and just find a weapon that I actually enjoy. And again, the way elite specializations in this game works is kind of strange. It doesn't change all your abilities. If I were to keep my staff that I was using for my base power Necromancer, I would still play the same from keys 1 to 5, so maybe I should just do that, I don't know. But I know that doesn't, from what I've read, that does not have the biggest damage output, and I don't think it would necessarily, you know, combine well with what the Reaper does. So, I don't know, shrug, I've got some experimentation to do. If I really don't like Reaper that much, I could always just work on unlocking Scourge Necromancer and see if I prefer that more. Or the third elite spec, which name I still don't remember. It's just kind of a shame to me because the reason I swapped off of Dremis as my main character, which was quite a drastic decision based on how much I value having a single main character in an MMO who's been through the entire experience, was because I unlocked the Chronomancer elite specialization and I hated it, and I wasn't particularly enjoying how he played beforehand either, but I really did not meld well with the, is it Chronomancer who does the big shield attacks and stuff like that? I did not like that. I have since learned I should probably have unlocked Virtuoso, and I should probably work on doing that so that I can enjoy Dremis again, assuming I enjoy Virtuoso. This is turning into kind of a Guild Wars 2 special, so I'm gonna put a pin in that. I could waffle on forever about Guild Wars 2, but those are my current thoughts and feelings and positions, and I'm going to start talking about some other aspects of my week and things I've been playing and that kind of thing. I think the main one is I watched Garrett of Grinding Gear play through Pokemon Soul Silver last week across a variety of streams he did. I had the week off, so I had the time to just sit there and marathon it with him. And I was reminded of why Pokemon Soul Silver is one of, if not my favourite Pokemon game out there. And yes, it got me in the Pokemon mood. I was just talking about having various different hyperfixation cycles, and Pokemon tends to be one of those. And while I'm less excited about Pokemon Legends ZA with every passing trailer and reveal, because I just think Legends Arceus was that little bit more unique and interesting and inspired, I do still plan on getting it and checking it out. It doesn't look like it's too much of a downgrade to have the Switch 1 edition, so we'll see if that's the case when that comes out, and if it is, I will happily pick that up. But yeah, because of all my kind of pre-Pokemon Soul Silver Pokemon are in that game saves boxes, because I never really got on with Pokemon Black and I never finished it, that's where all of those Pokemon exist, so I've never been able to reset my save file and start over and play the game again. So it was really fun to watch Garrett play through Pokemon Soul Silver and kind of relearn and rediscover certain aspects of that game myself, but also to kind of like emotionally vampirism off of his experience discovering kind of like what awaits you at the end of that game for the first time and stuff like that. If you want just hours of Pokemon VOD, go check that out at youtube.com/grinding gear, I assume. You can probably just find them by searching grinding gear. But as for what that did for my mood, I decided to spin up Pokemon Crystal for the first time. It turns out I owned Pokemon Silver on the 3DS, so I decided to grab Pokemon Crystal, which I've never played, and I've been playing through that a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to dedicate myself to a full playthrough because it is a lot grindier than I expected, even with warnings. I've reached the first gym and I am severely underleveled, and I've gone back to grind and it's an absolute slog, even with certain time enhancing elements. And because I was grinding at night, I kept running into Ghastlies, and my team currently doesn't have any attacks capable of dealing with Ghastlies. You know, it's that kind of era of game where you're like, the devs either didn't consider this or didn't care. But my god, there is something so cozy about Pokemon Crystal. Just like, what's it called? Little Root Town? Is that the name of the first town in Gen 2? The soundtrack to that, and like the different colours, how colourful that game is. I love it so much. I did also, as I mentioned, I grabbed my 3DS to see what I had where. I have 2 SD cards for different things on my 3DS, and I have discovered that if you boot Pokemon Silver, and I assume other digital Pokemon games, on the wrong SD card, it will immediately corrupt the save. Oh boy. Thankfully, I don't think I played more than a couple of hours of Pokemon Silver like 10 years ago when it came out, right? So I didn't really lose much. But I am a little bit more attached to my Pokemon Yellow save, which, again, I'm on like the 4th gym. But oh my god, that just makes me scared to play those games in case I forget which SD card I've got in and then I just immediately corrupt the save. That is potentially devastating, and it makes me not want to play those games over there. But I was considering, do I spin up a Pokemon Heart Gold playthrough, so I'm kind of replaying it, you know, and all that stuff. But I actually ended up deciding to head back to Pokemon Violet, which I still have not finished, despite getting pretty close to the end now. And I've kind of been casually dipping my toe into Pokemon Violet and continuing that playthrough, which I haven't let lie for too long. It's only been a few months, really, since I went hard on that playthrough. It is a little distracting knowing that I'm playing an inferior version of the game now that the Switch 2 patch is out, and I know that it could look better and perform better and run better, but I'm trying not to think about that too much. The main thing I'm telling myself is there are millions of people who played through the entirety of Pokemon Violet on Switch 1, and just because a Switch 2 edition now exists doesn't mean that it should really be any different for me. I have an experience, I guess. Pokemon Violet remains a really good Pokemon game in a really bad presentation, and I suppose I'll probably finish that soon. I'm pretty okay with having taken my time with it. In fact, I think for the last few Pokemon games that I've finished, I have gone to it in, you know, kind of like bursts of playtime and then put it aside for months, or I think even years in Let's Go Eevee's case, and come back to it and finished it and had a good time with the end game. So I assume that's probably what's going to happen with Violet as well. It's funny how I talk about my gaming plans speculatively, like I suppose I might end up doing this, like I have no control over my own destiny. I definitely need to spend some more time with Metroid Prime as well. I haven't really played that game since I talked about it last week. It's another one of those where I was absolutely obsessed with it for a few days, and then I just haven't picked it up again since. If you're wondering why I'm so speculative about what I might do with my own free will, it's because I am like that. What present Christian wants and what future Christian wants are two entirely different things, and I will never be privy to what future Christian ends up wanting to do. That madman. For all I know, this time next week I could be playing the Elder Scrolls Online, even though I have literally zero motivation to go and do that right now. Sometimes I feel like my ADHD is getting worse. But hey, I have been sinking quite a lot of time into Guild Wars 2 for quite a concession of weeks. Hence the quote-unquote Guild Wars 2 special. I suppose one thing I should mention is during my week off I also put together a LEGO Formula 1 vehicle, which I should specify which one it is. The Scuderia Ferrari. I have no idea if I am pronouncing that correctly. The Ferrari SF24. Google any of these things with the word LEGO in it and you'll see what I made. I haven't made a LEGO kit in a while and I do like collecting the LEGO Speed Champions vehicles. I've always, well, you know, it's weird because I'm not a car person in real life, quote unquote, because I don't even know how to drive, and it's not like I go and watch racing or anything like that, but I've played a lot of racing games, and that's kind of why I'm a car person by proxy. And as we were kind of talking about in recent Grid weekly waypoints, I've always loved the kind of aesthetic of Formula 1 racing and those vehicles, and when I saw this one on sale for decently cheap, I was like, hey, it's been a minute, I'll grab it and put it together. It is so therapeutic and satisfying to sit there and put together a LEGO set. I think this one took me probably 3 or 4 hours cumulative in total. I did it over a few days, and it was nice to do with like the Pokemon streams on in the background. It was a pretty decent way to chill out. I will say with this one, more than any of the others, there was some swearing involved, some biting, some panicking as things pinged off in different directions, and I had to go back a few pages and figure out what had come off and which way it was supposed to go back on. But we got there in the end. I'm staring at him, my little Lego guy in his Lego Formula 1 car. I have a little garage of these cars. I have a Ferrari something or other, more of a traditional Ferrari supercar. I have a Porsche 911, I believe, and a McLaren something or other. Car guy indeed. But these are the LEGO Speed Champions vehicles I have assembled thus far. I also have the Batmobile, which isn't a LEGO Speed Champions vehicle, but it is pretty damn cool. And I've kind of let these things gather dust in a corner somewhere in recent years, and I recently, you know, actually got them out, took care of them, presented them properly, and now I'm pretty happy with having them again. I think, you know, while I primarily buy these things because I enjoy building them, it is also nice to just have them as little collectibles. Something I'm realizing with these LEGO Speed Champions sets, and maybe it's a LEGO sets thing in general, is that they seem to be available for a little while and then they get rotated out for something new, and then I don't know if they ever come back again, so maybe these things have kind of limited time availability value too. Sweet! FOMO in physical toy collection. Christian's discovered a new thing. It's right, I'm not going to suddenly start buying tons of Lego. It just makes me value what I already have that little bit more, I suppose. In other news, this week I went and saw Fantastic Four, which was, yeah, it was pretty great actually. Say that again. Overall, I think I ended up enjoying Superman that little bit more. If you could only go and see one, I would recommend you go and see Superman. But Fantastic Four First Steps is also a brilliant superhero movie, quite refreshing, the setting that it takes place in as well, being away from the main 616 universe. And I would recommend, if you like Marvel in any capacity, go and see it. It's a good time. I've also been binging the Absolute DC Comics, and very quickly before the end of the video, my tier list for that is Absolute Wonder Woman at the top, followed by Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Flash, and Absolute Green Lantern. They are all really, really good, but Wonder Woman is incredible. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much for tuning in. I will catch you in whatever I make next.